Hello again, Gooners. That's 4 taps. That's how many goals we saw today. The loose cannon, number 79. 79 was a good year for us, of course. We beat Manchester United 3-2. At one point in this game against Bayern Munich, I actually thought we might win 3-2. Well, a very small part of me thought that. The majority of me thought we're probably going to... Maybe I thought we could get a draw after we pulled that goal back from Podolski. Very lucky, fortuitous goal. It was a corner that really shouldn't have gone in our favour, but we managed to get it. It was a deflection from off one of our players, and we managed to get a corner, and we scored from it, and then it was game on, but not for long. I don't want to make it poetry. Certainly wasn't poetry watching what we saw. It was the best team we've got, but the best team, as we've known all along, many of us, not just me, a number of us know this team is just simply not good enough. Theo Walcott played up front, but where was the service? I didn't see any balls put behind the defence for Theo to run onto. You could blame Theo, perhaps Theo's not making the right runs, but I'm assuming really that it's that we're not creating the chances, because even when Giroud came on with 20 minutes to go, or Kel Supri that we put on our subs with 20 minutes to go, but even then, how many passes did he get to run onto? I don't remember many. He had the one shot, which was set up ironically by Theo and Rosicky. Rosicky, I didn't give the best of the best of receptions to when I heard he was coming on. I was pleased to see Giroud, but Rosicky I'm not overly keen on. Although he does have his moments, Rosicky, who doesn't? And I don't know what to do with my hands. My hands are all over the place, a bit like our midfield. Let's start. Well, I don't want to pick on anybody, but looking at our midfield, I just thought overall. Somebody said to me, "What about Wilshere?" That was a positive, and I said, "Well, how many chances did Wilshere set up during that game?" He was the best of a bad bunch in midfield, I feel. Arteta is a good player. They're all good players. Don't get me wrong, they're all good players, but we don't have a balance. That's really what I'm aiming at, trying to get across here. We don't have a balance. If you don't have a balance, then you're set to lose more games than you're going to win. That's obviously not happened just yet, although I understand Arsene Wenger's win percentage is slightly below 50%. And I don't want to keep having a go at the manager all the time. Yes, it is his fault about the players, though, that we've assembled. Who was it? Gordon Strachan said it's not the manager, it's the manager's improved, it's the players that haven't. Because 10 years ago we had a better team in terms of players. Now we're lacking players. But my question is, who is actually buying the players then? If it's not Arsene Wenger, then who is it? This person should be brought to task, because this is the person that is causing this run of bad results. It's obviously not Arsene Wenger. If whoever's purchasing the players, that's the person who should be hauled in front of the press and should be held accountable, really, because the players that we're fielding right now are decent players, but they're not a team because there's no balance in this team. If you've got a midfield with okay, let's run through the midfield. We've got Arteta. In my book, he's probably an attacking midfielder. He's certainly not a defensive midfielder, although he does play back now because he wants to help the team out, and he's a good player. No, I've got no problems with him, although he has been called Cesc Fabregas light. I'm not going along with that necessarily. I don't think he's as good as Cesc, but he's pretty good. So it sounds like I am going along with it. All right, I am. But anyway, whatever. He's certainly not a bad player, but he's not a defensive midfielder. Then we've got Rambo, otherwise known as Aaron Ramsey. Of course, Aaron Ramsey is playing more defensively than he otherwise would. ITV said he was going to play on the right wing. Of course, he didn't play on the right wing at all. He was more on the left, which meant Cazorla had to play more on the right than he's accustomed to. That didn't work. That's a tactical decision. That's not a player making the wrong decision. That is somewhere in the management team. Somebody should be held accountable for this. So Rambo didn't play that well. He didn't play that badly. Cazorla didn't really get into the game. He's a key player for us. Whose fault is that? Is that Cazorla? Cazorla's having a bad run of form? Perhaps he is. Arteta didn't do that much. Well, he's just not a world beater, is he? He's a very good player and possibly good enough if we've got three amazing players alongside him. Cazorla being one of those amazing players, Wilshere another amazing player, but to complement Arteta and the other two, we need a defensive midfielder. Everybody knew that, but we've gone into, well, following this January transfer window, we've gone into the remainder of the campaign without the full complement of midfielders that we need. We've got Diaby, who to me, I'm not even going to talk about him. So there you go. That is what we've been left with. And who is responsible? Somebody somewhere at the club is responsible for the signings. If it's not Arsene Wenger, I'd like to know who this person is. We hear that Arsene is a control freak. I'm not sure he is, but I'm not sure he isn't. The way he went off at the press the other day, you have to wonder what is going on. I keep on saying that, so perhaps I should just go back into the past when things were all things were rosy back then. You'd think, right? 100 years back, roughly, we're talking. And I'm going to go back to when Highbury opened for business. Halcyon days. Woolwich Arsenal played their last game in South East London in April 1913 when they drew 1-1 with Middlesbrough. Oh, what would we have done for a draw today? But never mind. Norris, who showed himself completely oblivious to local opposition to the club's move, now began to invest big time. Invest. Hear that word? Invest. What does that mean? He raised £80,000, which included bank guarantees and loans, and far-reaching development work was carried out at the new ground. This included the levelling of the pitch, the partial erection of a new grandstand and terraces, and the installation of turnstiles. Highbury Stadium opened for business. Cash was at a premium. That's never changed. The builder of the stand agreed to take a cut of the weekly gate receipts as payment, and when they played their first match as a second division club simply called the Arsenal on September the 6th, 1913, there were still no changing rooms. So here we are, more than, well, it's not quite 100 years later, but here we are, looking down the barrel of an exit from the Champions League. Yeah, I'm trying to get myself cheerful. It's just not working. Let's keep going. Indeed, one player, George Jobby, yeah, that brings a smile to the face straight away, that name. George Jobby had to go off with an ankle injury, and the trainer, George Hardy, borrowed a milk cart to take him back to his lodgings. Yeah, that kind of cheers me up slightly, or does it? Well, the fact they're both called George, perhaps everyone was called George in those days. But Arsenal won the match 2-1 against Leicester Fosse. Leicester Fosse, I guess that's where they got the idea that they're the Foxes. Anyway, they won 2-1 against Leicester Fosse, and the new era had a successful start. The season as a whole was an adequate one. That's what we'd hope for. Adequate if it means fourth place. Yes, we'd hope for adequate. The team finished third. Yes, I like third. The team finished third and were only denied first division status. The first division status that Norris craved for on goal average by Bradford Park Avenue. These names keep haunting us, don't they? However, there was a spectre on the horizon that was beyond even the influence of the all-powerful Norris. In September 1914, war was declared. Well, that puts everything into perspective. I don't want to think about. I don't want to think about what I've been reading today on the internet. As a club with strong military connections, the effects of war were keenly felt at Highbury. The club lost both players and spectators who went to work in the munitions factory and others who joined the armed forces. The league went ahead during the 1914-1915 season, but it was played in a false and unreal atmosphere, a bit like today against Bayern after the first two goals went in. In one case, the situation proved fatal. Bob Benson, a fullback at the club, went back to Woolwich to work in the munitions factory at the start of hostilities. In doing so, he lost the fitness levels he had achieved through playing regularly. On a rare day free from working at the factory, Benson went to watch Arsenal play at Reading. His pal and fellow fullback Joe Shaw was unable. His pal and fellow fullback Joe Shaw were unable to get time off work for the game, and Benson fatefully agreed to take his place. But he was palpably unfit to play, and he had to come off. He went to the dressing room and then he collapsed. in the arms of the trainer George Hardy, and he died. He was buried in his Arsenal shirt. It was a strange season, with both teams and stadiums deprived of players and spectators because of the conflict in Europe. Still, the season was allowed to come to its conclusion, and Arsenal finished 5th. Wow, do I not like that, as Graham Taylor might say. Despite this success, the club's finances were in a mess, and the future looked grim. During the conflict, football was still played, but it was on a regional basis between teams made up of a mixture of players and guests. Attendances dwindled as the standard got lower, and the war took its toll. At the end of the conflict in 1918, Arsenal found themselves in an even worse state. The club was a massive £60,000 in debt and was faced with the unattractive prospect of another season of second division football. The players returned after 4 years in the trenches, just grateful and lucky to be alive, but totally unprepared for professional sport. However, in another incident that may have earned the club its lucky tag, when league football resumed in September 1919, Arsenal were in the first division. That's what we need. Well, we're in the first division, aren't we? Thanks, as usual, to Henry Norris and his wheeler-dealer character and powers of persuasion. Henry Norris, I salute you. Until the next time, up the Gooners and away!